Hello, everyone, and welcome to He Knows. I'm your host, Chris, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world, as well as some of the fun information that we've learned over the last week about the happenings in the Miles Guo case, the Miles Guo lawsuit that was brought forth by PAG, the Pacific Alliance Group, and then we're going to talk about some of the players inside that organization and how they have kept fraud in the family with little Wang Qishan. The big news in the last couple of days has been that President-elect Trump has named Kash Patel to be the director of the FBI. Now, already this has sent shivers down the spines of all of the pundits on national news, including MSDNC, all of those folks that are crying about this being a death to democracy. Keep in mind, they don't mean that it's a death to democracy. They don't care about democracy. What they care about is their bureaucracy and keeping their bureaucracy alive. This is how they steal from the American people. This is how all of our tax dollars go missing. And this is how they really pull the wool over everyone's eyes. So why Kash Patel? Well, Kash Patel was very instrumental in getting down to the real base of what the whole Russia hoax was all about. He understands who the players are. He knows where all the bodies in DC are buried. And this is what's got them very, very, very scared. So just imagine if we had an FBI that actually got back to solving crimes rather than staging them so that they could arrest people and hold them indefinitely. Kind of sounds like the CCP, doesn't it? In other news, Trump has laid down the gauntlet with the BRICS nations. For a long time, I was one of those people that thought that the BRICS nations was going to replace the dollar in the worldwide currency as the world reserve currency. It seems like every time we turn around, some other country is taking down the U.S. as the world reserve. Maybe it's Iraq, who said it was going to be illegal to do any business in Iraq with the U.S. dollar, or Saudi Arabia, who started taking other currencies like the Chinese yuan or Russian rubles, all for oil purchases. And it's been one of those things that I thought was just bound to happen. The BRICS nations have been working on producing a currency for the BRICS nations that would be common to all. We understand that there are a lot of countries that are applying for membership to the BRICS nations. But the BRICS nation that is making the most noise about replacing the dollar as the world reserve currency is Brazil. Now, it's interesting to me because Brazil has reset their currency 6 times since 1942, and their accumulated inflation rate is 2.75 sextillion. That is a 2, a 7, and a 5, followed by 19 zeros. That's an amazing number. Can you imagine since 1942? Now, America was taken off the gold standard in the 1930s. And since then, our dollar has been deflated continuously to the point to where its purchasing power is only about 4 to 5% of what it was back in 1930s. So just imagine 95% gone versus 2.75 sextillion. A 2, a 7, a 5, followed by 19 zeros. It seems to me like Brazil would be one of the last countries you should ever want to take any kind of economic policy suggestions from. Maybe it's just me, but it doesn't sound like they're very strong on monetary policy. We see the world is rapidly shifting. President Trump might as well already be in office. Just in the last few days, Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that they would work up a ceasefire deal with Iran. And we've also seen that Zelensky has said that they would give up lands in order to end the war with Russia. Now, this is going to be a big blow to NATO. NATO has clearly been trying to pull into a very hot war with Russia for the entire length of this Ukraine-Russia war. And Biden has been trying to take credit for the Israel ceasefire, but we all know that never would have happened without a Trump landslide victory. And finally, California, 25 days after the election, is still counting votes. That's the spirit. Keep voting till you win and keep finding those votes until you get the numbers you want. Right, cheaters? Right. Now, a clean FBI would surely be beneficial to Miles Guo and Yvette Wang, even though Miles was found guilty of some of the lesser charges that were brought up against him and Yvette pled guilty. There is still time for the FBI to clean up this mess and vindicate these maliciously prosecuted people. They still haven't been able to prove that there's any money missing. And all of the quote-unquote victims that they were able to bring towards trial, it seems to me, were definitely CCP plants. I am not sure that any of them were actually victims or ever gave any money into the investments in which they were accused of being fraudulent. Now remember, this all started when Miles beat Little Wang Qishan, his man in Beijing, the lieutenant mayor, I think it was, of Beijing, and sent him to prison over the land deal where Pangu Plaza now sits in Beijing, right next to the Olympic Stadium. This whole thing prompted Little Wang to get very, very angry, and it prompted him to want to seek revenge. Now, Wang Qishan used his slush fund company, HNA, and then eventually PAG, in order to perpetrate these criminal acts against Miles Guo. And what was that criminal act? Well, Miles, in the construction of Pangu Plaza, had co-signed for a loan for the group that was building Pangu Plaza. And he had guaranteed, I think it was like $30 million against the loan. And so this loan of $30 million, there was eventually a complete payoff in the total of $100 million because apparently 30% interest, which is what they were charged in China for this loan, works out to be $70 million on a $30 million loan. That right there is criminal. But that was completely paid back with interest. Now, interestingly enough, in addition to Miles saying that he would guarantee the loan, Pangu Plaza turned around and pledged 40 to 50% of its capital to also guarantee the loan. Now, in the end, the criminals decided to pass up on the 40 to 50%, probably because they knew they were going to get the property anyway in the end. And they decided to hold Miles accountable for the $30 million loan. And so what wound up happening is on April 18th, 2017, and now this is the day before the advertised Voice of America interview in where Miles Guo was going to start releasing all the dirty laundry on Wang Qishan, Little Wang, and HNA. And so they had PAG, which was a subsidiary, a offshoot, connected deeply through family ties, company that came over to America, went judge shopping in the Southern District of New York, and found a judge that would be willing to take the case. It sounds to me like Mr. Green showed up. You know, Mr. Green usually walks around inside of a briefcase, lots of stacks of small little numbered bills or large numbered bills. You get what I'm saying. And so, again, on April 18th of 2017, the Voice of America, one day before the Voice of America broadcast, they tried to persuade Miles not to go public with his revelations and filed suit in the Southern District of New York. Now, this case should have never gotten any traction, should have never been given any kind of jurisdiction, because roughly the same time, Miles had tried to bring suit against UBS, and he was told there was no jurisdiction. He had no standing. Now, how is it that a foreign company, PAG, referring to a foreign deal, all happened on Chinese soil, was allowed to be given standing against somebody who had taken up residence in the United States after the loan in question had been completely paid off? Yes, there was a lot of fraud. What they wound up doing was they forged lots of documentation. They shopped it to the judges. Mr. Green showed up, I'm sure, and they found a judge that was willing to take the case, if you get my meaning. And eventually, Miles wasn't allowed to present any contrary evidence in the case. Miles wasn't allowed a trial by jury, and Miles wasn't allowed to even really defend himself. And of course, what happened was PAG, bringing Mr. Green along, was awarded $100 million in the suit. Seems to me like that is a travesty of justice. So, how is this all a family affair? How do companies like HNA, PAG become the plaything of a tyrant, Little Wang Qishan? Let's watch our first video, and we'll get this right from Miles' own words.
王岐山和德国前副总理菲利普到底什么关系？王岐山是海航的大老板，我相信天下没人怀疑，没有任何人怀疑。海航的创始人陈峰和王健是白手套，是盗国贼一分子，没有任何人在怀疑。盗取国家的财富，就对面的这个墙上，大家看，哎，回到刚才那个。旧庄还要回到刚才那个，大家从这个结构图里边，大家可以看到一个最核心的人物姚依林。从姚依林这一支出来了亲子关系，姚明伟2001年去世，曾在越南学习，长期居住。传说中的私生子就是菲利普罗斯勒，越南以前德国副总理哎，别动啊，旧庄，你别老跳啊！你把它停下来，所以说，战友们，你们能看到前边姚家的这一支和这个关系大家你们能看得非常的清楚。姚依林，中共前高官、前常委，6市镇压的核心人物姚明伟、姚岐山。私生子菲利普·罗斯勒，慈航前首席官，慈航基金受益人孙瑶、冠军刘成杰大家再往下看，又出来俩人物了，原来没有的林郑月娥，香港现代运动的核心人物。林郑月娥旁边是谁呀？大家叫 House Glank， 这个是谁？叫 PAG 泰蒙投资集团的第一个创始人牛吧？牛不牛？大家然后往上看，海航的是王健、陈峰的儿子陈晓峰，还有 House Glank。然后第二个叫 Chris 这个人是 PAG 第2号人物。第3个是中国人叫伊恩正我不把他照片放那儿，因为这个人还挺好的跟我挺好的。这个人是咱们国家安全部这个核心人物你在网上找不到正义一张照片但是我有很多等 能都找不着，是我来弄。然后王建死后，所持有的股权全部被捐到了慈航基金，捐到了慈航基金的钱到了谁手里边？到了传说中的姚明伟的越南私生子菲利普罗斯勒这儿来，大家看到了吧？然后从我2017年6月开始爆料的时候，把冠军刘成杰股权全部转到了他的名下，包括孙瑶啊，包括孙瑶。但是大家要看到一个核心的啊，当初最早2007年的时候，2007年的12年前，海航最牛的时候，投资最大的，也是到国财富最牛的海航投资，叫凤凰机场，曾经100%或者70%，就是通过伊恩正还有 PAG 的联合创始人 House。当时是陈奋还有王建全面运作，中间运作人就是王岐山当时从回到北京，这是他安排他们给他要告诉大家的事情。当时的泰蒙就是所谓的泰蒙投资集团，几百万美元的资本，当时。
So there you have it. What we also have now is the infographic that Miles had in that video, and we've translated it, much of it, into English. Can we put that up on the screen? And we'll kind of go over who some of these players are and a little bit of information about them. Thank you. So up in the left-hand corner, we have Yao Yilin. Now remember, Yao Yilin was deeply involved in the happenings during the Tiananmen massacre in 1989, June 4th of 1989. This tyrannical individual decided that it would be better off to kill Chinese people rather than to listen to their demands and help understand how they wanted to make the country a better place. They were pushing for more democracy. They wanted a better place, wanted better opportunities. But Yao Yilin decided that it was against the country's best interest, and they just squashed these people and ended up murdering lots of Chinese folks in the process. Now, Yao Yilin had two children that are important here. One, Yao Mingwei, and the other, Yao Mingshan. Yao Mingshan is the wife of Little Wang Qishan. Now, Little Wang Qishan is where all of this starts getting very interesting with the HNA. Little Wang Qishan had a secretary by the name of Chen Feng. And so Little Wang decided that he was going to give $10 million to Chen Feng to start HNA. And that's where it all started. Chen Feng got his son involved, Chen Xiaofeng, and then another gentleman by the name of Wang Jian. Wang Jian came to an unexpected inn in Provence, France, in 2018. It seems to me like it's a little coincidental that in 2018, at the time when Wang Jian came to his end, was the exact same time when the Chinese had their very, very first president of the Interpol in place. And of course, the president of Interpol had his house purchased for him in France by HNA. And it wasn't just a house, it was a mansion. And in the 2000s, that would have been, I'm sure, a pretty penny. I hope they got their money's worth. Kind of like they didn't really get their money's worth with Biden either, did they? But Wang Jian came to his end, and the news reports claimed it to be an accident. Now, why in the world would somebody worth billions be climbing a wall in order to take a picture when he could just as easily go up to any floor he wanted to and take the same picture. But no, he had to climb a wall and fell 30 to 40 feet, I guess it was. And after that, all of his shares were then delivered of HNA were given to a foundation in New York called Xihong. That doesn't make any sense until you start looking at who the benefactors for Xihong Foundation are. Number one is Sun Yao. Sun Yao is supposedly the adopted daughter of Little Wang. I'm wondering whether she's actually the adopted daughter or if maybe she is another one of these illegitimate children, a lot like Philip Rossler, who ended up being the illegitimate child of Yao Mingwei. Philip Rossler grew up to be Vice Chancellor of Germany and now is one of the lead people behind the World Economic Foundation. You know, the people that say you will own nothing and like it. Kind of like China. Not a good scene. Anyway, so Sun Yao is a benefactor of those millions and millions of dollars of shares that Wang Jian wound up giving up. Now, why they didn't go to his family, that is an interesting question. We know that the family connection, at least a loose family connection, Wang Qishan's secretary, Chen Feng, is pretty much going to do anything Wang Qishan says. And I would imagine that Chen Xiaofeng, the son of Chen Feng, is going to do anything that his father says. There is such a connection there that it defies reason to believe that any other possibility exists. Now, there's a couple of other names here by the name of Wang Jun and Liu Chengji. Both of those are also said to be illegitimate children in the family tree somewhere. I'm not completely sure where they fall, but based on the reports that I've seen, there is a family connection. So, with all of these individuals in the Xihong Foundation receiving the ill-gotten gains from the death of Wang Jian, it seems like there's some real shady deals going on. Now remember, HNA is a Chinese company. PAG is an international conglomerate. So they decided to start spreading their wings. They had to, and PAG at one point was 100% owner of HNA. Now, this had to start simmering back a little bit because as they were going to start robbing HNA of all of its assets, which all went to the Xihong Foundation, all valuable assets in the company ended up in the Xihong Foundation, which, again, is a New York foundation. In comes Philip Rossler again, and he was appointed the CEO of the Xihong Foundation. And this happened in December of 2017. So from April, when Miles was starting to spill the beans on HNA, it took them literally 8 months in order to turn this around and start dissolving HNA and moving everything into the Xihong Foundation to start hiding the assets and start pushing PAG and using PAG as a weapon in international business. So Philip Rossler is also connected with Horst Geicke, who is a German businessman tied deeply with Hong Kong and Vietnam. In his family tree, there is significant connection to the really, really bad guys from World War II in the European theater. I think you know who I mean. And then there's also Carrie Lam. Now, Carrie Lam is an interesting figure also. She is, of course, totally CCP. And she was the one that was involved with the suppression of the Hong Kong umbrella protest. Now, this took place back in 2019 when the CCP was cracking down on Hong Kong, just like they would like to be able to crack down on Taiwan. Back then, the citizens of Hong Kong were all in the streets protesting against the atrocities that were being plagued on them by the CCP. And the CCP, of course, started using tear gas, and that's when the umbrellas came out. They started using the umbrellas to fend off the tear gas attacks from the CCP. So Carrie Lam, who might possibly have a relationship with Horst, who has been known for some domestic problems in the past as well. But Carrie Lam could be in a relationship with him, and that could be quite the connection too. Again, more tyranny, more disgusting putting down of people that they just want to rule over rather than allow them to live their lives freely. So also connected to this is HNA's 10% or almost 10% ownership stake of Deutsche Bank. Now, it's interesting that Philip Rossler, who was vice chancellor in Germany, and Horst Geicke, who is a German-born citizen with those really ugly family ties, all seem to come into ownership of the Deutsche Bank. Now, you know what happens when you've got majority ownership, even at 9.9% of an organization or a business. You get to start placing people that you want on the board of directors, which leads to you being able to drive the business. It leads to you being able to put down forth policy of how you want things to go. And that is exactly what happened there. Fortunately, they wound up giving up some of that interest, and I don't know that that's still the case. But this was all in an effort for them to be able to take over Europe through their connections with Germany, and turned into a fairly ugly situation when that all failed, fortunately. So, in comes PAG. Now, PAG is actually the company that apparently forged lots of documents and PAG was the company that loaned the $100 million to the Pangu Group, building Pangu Plaza. Now, Miles, again, had pledged to cover as co-signer. And then it turned around that Pangu Plaza pledged 40 to 50% ownership stake, yet PAG ignored that. So what they had, and honestly enough, all of the proceeds of the loan, whether it be principal and interest, had been paid back. But since Miles had started spilling the beans on all of the corruptness of HNA, all of the corruptness of Wang Qishan, Little Wang and his family members, and his secretary and his son, decided they were going to use the PAG Corporation in order to make its way over to the Southern District of New York, where that lawsuit took place. So in the end, they attempted to, in the end with that lawsuit, they won a judgment of $100 million. In addition to that, they tried to seize his 18th floor apartment at the Sherry Netherland Hotel. Fortunately, in the 3 attempts that they made, they were never successful. So what happened? In the end, the Biden administration came in. The Biden administration is the organization that was completely bought and paid for by China. So They completely owned the Biden administration, and by owning the Biden administration, they were able to control the DOJ, the FBI, and that is exactly who raided Miles a year and a half ago in, I think it was February, March of 2023. And unfortunately, Miles and Yvette have both been in prison since, or at least in the MDC. Now, we do have a sentencing coming up on, I believe it's the 17th of January, which is interestingly a couple of days before the inauguration. So I don't know whether it's going to be postponed again. I know that when they put forth the request to postpone the sentencing, they only asked for a week or two. They didn't ask for this much time. But the courts decided, in their infinite wisdom, that they were going to push it till the 17th of January. I'm not sure what that serves, other than it gets closer to the Trump inauguration. With that, hopefully Trump will get Kash Patel put in place. He will get Jay, the new appointee for the Southern District of New York. Let me catch his name real quick. That is Jay Clayton. Sorry. And with that, they'll be able to start getting these people back in shape, start putting these organizations back into where they're actually trying to solve crimes with the FBI, and the Southern District of New York understand what a crime actually is, rather than allow Mr. Green to influence their decision making. Now, next time, we're going to talk a little bit about the happenings of Joe Lowe and all of the players that were involved when they tried to influence the Trump administration back in the first administration when he was number 45. We're going to talk about those players like Elliot Brody and others that basically got shut down by the Trump administration. They tried to pressure the Trump administration to send Miles back to China, and they totally failed. So they had to wait until the Biden administration was in place. They had to wait until they could control the FBI, control the DOJ, and that's exactly what they did. So please join us next time when you can learn a little bit more about what took place with that particular instance. And I thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.